Okay. Anyways, thank you for joining me once again, Tim. This episode's going to be really fun. This will be the last in a series in a way, because we've done most of the we've done basically all the Whitesnake, except his David's solo albums. So this will be the last one we do for a while at least. So this is Slip of the Tongue, and this video will be ranking the songs. So yeah, you probably have the original there. This is a remaster, the 2019. As I've said before, most of these I have the box sets for. You see it there, and the track listing here is changed once again.
Yeah.
So of course
Why they
it
do
opens
that.
with Slip of the Tongue, but then you have Kid and Scott Claus, Sheep and
Yeah.
Nasty, Now You're Gone, The Deeper the Love, Judgment Days, Sailing Ships, Wings of the Storm, Slowpoke Music, and then ends on Fur Loving, which is
It's not.
really, really
Oh,
strange
it's
to
terrible.
end. Yeah.
It's terrible. I don't know why they do that. Yeah, this is my. I've got the remastered one too, and actually well, I would have gotten it anyway, but the main reason I got it is because it's the closest that I'll ever come to hearing Coverdale sing "Burning Heart,"
Yeah.
which we'll talk about that at a later time on something that we're going to do on my channel. But I knew they were doing that song, which is why I happened to find that Vandenberg album and picked it up. But anyway, but this is the original CD. I didn't buy it in 1989. I was still buying cassettes. But a couple of years later, I found this on CD marked down. And I don't know if you can see this on camera or not, but it's got a hole in it.
Yeah.
So it was yeah. Even though it sold 1 million copies, they pressed it. Geffen pressed it as if it was going to sell, 7-8 million like the last one did. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and wasn't this the first album that you were waiting on also?
Yeah, because I mean, like when I got into Whitesnake, the 87 album had been out for quite a few months. So yeah, this was the first one I was anxiously waiting for and reading the magazines, finding out when it was going to be out. I remember it seemed like it took forever because I think initially they were saying it was going to be out in the summer of 89, but didn't come out until November.
Yeah.
If it had come out in the summer, maybe it might have made a difference. I don't know, but who knows? But it came out late 89, and yeah, I was really excited to get it. That feeling of getting that, being into a band, and now they've got a new album to listen to.
Yeah. So what are your overall thoughts about the album? Because I feel this is a continuation of the last album, and it sounds very similar in the instrumentation and David's voice and everything. But this is like the time where he really screams a lot of the lyrics, and you get this, you get the Donington, and like he starts off doing that a lot on the album, but the tour it just screams everything. Even the songs that just doesn't have that in the original, that doesn't need it, he just screams it anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really unnecessary. Though I do like it. I do like this album, and I think overall the rest of the band are really good.
Oh yeah, killer lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, but he really strained his voice on this, and it's a bit much.
Yeah, and that's the result of it. And all anyone needs to do is listen to that. I think that way back in 1990, I think he did permanent damage to himself, to his vocals. And though it took a while, I think that it caught up to him because it was unnecessary. And we can get into this on the album too. But as far as my thoughts on the album, my thoughts on this album are actually a little controversial because I myself prefer this album to the 1987 album. Now, maybe that's nostalgia. Maybe that's because it was the first one I was waiting for. I think the production on this album is much better. It's much clearer. The drums sound much better. The drums sound like a live drummer sitting behind a drum set. It doesn't have that huge muffly sort of wet drum sound where it's hard to make out what Ainsley Dunbar was doing on here. I think Tommy Aldridge comes out clear as a bell on here. Keith Olsen's still involved with this, but instead of Mike Stone, it was produced by Mike Klink, who by this time was well known for producing Guns N' Roses, but he goes back a little farther than that. But it is a bit, dare I say, more raw sounding, and I think that suits this better. I love the fact, it was never going to be a long-term setup with Steve Vai, but I'm a Steve Vai fan, so I'm glad that he guested on this album, although, there was the whole thing about Adrian Vandenberg supposedly, he was doing a piano player's exercise and he damaged his wrist. Like Keith Olsen, in an interview with Martin Popoff, swears that that's just not the case. And that didn't happen. Adrian was angry at Martin for printing it. And Martin's like, hey, man, that's what he told me. That's what he told me. And I don't know. But what I do know is Steve Vai tends not to play on albums with other guitar players. So I think it was a business arrangement. Steve Vai would join Whitesnake and do the tour, but he plays all the guitars on the album because that's just my feeling. I don't know, but it is kind of bittersweet because, with the exception of one song, Adrian co-wrote everything on here. And I'm a huge fan of Adrian, not just as a guitar player, but also as a songwriter. He's got a knack for catchy songs. He and Coverdale, it's not, it's definitely, if you can't have Sykes and you've got Vandenberg, that's all right, because he still knows how to write catchy songs. But it is weird that the first time you get Coverdale and Vandenberg actually heard together on an album isn't until Restless Heart, which is an album that most people in North America missed out on the first time. So, interesting arrangement. But, you've got Rudy Sarzo on bass. So you've pretty much got the 87 video lineup with the exception of Vivian Campbell leaving and Steve Vai coming in. But I really like this album. Now, one thing that I don't understand why, and I don't know if this is something that either Mike Stone or John Sykes might have said to David Coverdale, but you don't have to have these songs. If you find that you're having to scream the songs to sing them, let's do them in a lower key. Because if no one has heard them, no one's going to notice that they're in a lower key. Therefore, they'll be easier to sing live. And I think we could have gotten many more great tours with David really singing well. To the point where the one remake on this album, they do the opposite of what most people do and raise it up a key, which was not necessary. But I still like the album. It sounds like I'm complaining, but I still really like this album. Once again, they got Hugh Syme on the cover art. It's just, I like the simplicity of this. It looks like a banner. It looks like the type of thing, like, if you come in first in a marathon, they hang something like this around your neck. But I like it. I do like this album, but I prefer the original running order, and that's the order it was meant to be in. Like Sailing Ships has got to be the album closer.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Like Sailing Ships is a closer, definitely, 100%. And the epicness of it, that it starts very slow with the acoustic guitar and everything, builds and builds. That is what that song was supposed to be, the closer of the album. And having Food for Loving almost makes it like a bonus track in a way.
Feels like it. Maybe it was so that they had all the original songs first, but I still don't know why they had to mess with. I don't know why they do that, unless it's like that we talked about before. It's like, well, let's give them remixes, let's give them a different track listing, but it never, in my opinion, it doesn't work at all.
Yeah. Something you mentioned before about the live album and the tour and everything, like you said that most people probably won't know the older songs and what key they were in and everything, but like most of these songs are like Slide It In and 87 and the new album at the time, Slip of the Tongue. So, and those are the albums that were like big in America and everything. And so, of course, I think that's something that people were familiar with and probably knew the songs and how they sounded originally. But probably a lot of people don't know too. So,
well, I mean, like the Slip of the Tongue songs, I think all of them could have been lowered in different keys before the album came out. Yeah, once the album's out there and recorded, you kind of got to stick with the arrangement. Although I do think it's cool that, correct me if I'm wrong, I never listened to that, but they do Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City on there, don't they?
Yep.
So that's cool. And I also like the fact that they do The Audience Is Listening and For the Love of God, the two songs from Steve Vai's Passion and Warfare album, which would have been current at the time. And I love that album. So But it's weird that they're playing Donington in the UK, where Whitesnake was kind of always a big band, and they're doing their North American set list, right? They're not. They didn't work up. It's strange to me that they didn't do Ready and Willing. They didn't do Walking in the Shadow of the Blues. I would imagine that the British fans are probably like, "What's all this?" Like, I want to hear some of the classic Whitesnake stuff.
Yeah,
But
because the European audience is more familiar with the earlier Whitesnake. The American like market and everything didn't like get those albums really. They were like
yeah,
not in print and everything, and they came later, I think.
mm-hmm.
So during like the Geffen years and everything. So yeah, and the distribution in America was like it wasn't really anything at all in America for those early albums. So I totally get that most American fans at the time didn't know those songs. But for the European market and in the UK, I think that would have been much better to play some of the older stuff too. Not only Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City, but some other songs too.
I mean, I understand, like, when you're on tour, you have to rehearse. You can't just go on. Whitesnake is never a band that would just kind of wing it on stage. They'd want to be well rehearsed. But I would think okay, let's say you start your tour in America and Canada, and now you're heading over to the UK. Well, I think 2 or 3 songs, they could have switched out some songs. And, I would imagine there was a bit of a backlash, because the UK would be like, oh, well, he's just catering to the Americans now. But I don't know. On paper, like when you look at the track listing on that Live at Donington, it's a great set list. I just wish it sounded, and the band is great. Band's fantastic, but hey.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's get into the album. So, Tim, what's your number 11 on Slip of the Tongue?
So, my least favorite song on this album is Kitten's Got Claws. It's a fun song. It's a fast, heavy one. It's just a little bit too on the nose, because everybody knows he's singing about his wife at the time, Tawny Katane. She was the star of the videos, and I get it, but it's just a little bit too cutesy. I think it's a great song musically, but and I like it, but something had to come in last. But for me, it's Kitten's Got Claws.
I've also heard that she had some control over the direction, especially in the lyrics.
I've also heard that she's got a lot to do with why Vivian left, but I certainly don't. That's just, that's the word on the street.
Wasn't it like Vivian's girlfriend or wife at the time?
Yeah, the wives didn't get along, and yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, so Vivian's career in Whitesnake, really the only official recording he's on is the live stuff on the reissue of the '87 album.
Yep. That would have been cool to get like 87 tour, like a live show reissue. That would be, or
by itself. Yeah,
that would be really cool. But yeah. All right, my number 11 is Slowpoke Music. I'm not a huge fan of the song. I'm never really clicked with the chorus on this. I just think it's kind of lackluster. I think overall it's just a very mediocre song, and I don't have much to add to it, really. I just think it's all right, but it's never been a favorite. So yeah, that's my number 11.
It's my number 10, Slowpoke Music. I remember reading, and then of course I went and checked it out, on some of the early Whitesnake, or at least the first 2 Coverdale solo albums, you'll see his publishing is credited to SP Music. So apparently that's what he's, that title has been floating around his head for a long, long time. I like the riff. That's a typical Steve Vai riff. And I like how it goes to double time at the end. But yeah, it's only okay. It's only an okay song. I heard this song. This was the second song from Slip of the Tongue that I heard, because before I got the album, I got the cassette single to Fool for Your Loving, and this was the B-side.
This is a song that I almost always forget that it's on the album. So I always envision that Sweet Lady Luck is on the original, but it's not. So, and this is kind of left out in my mind, but it's on the album. So yeah, So that's kind of the biggest criticism I can give it, is that I forget it exists. So yeah.
Yeah, that's not saying much, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have to be reminded it exists, obviously you don't think much of it.
Yeah, exactly. My number 10 is Sweet Lady Luck. So yeah, I think this was a B-side, I think.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it's quite all right. I do like the keyboards in this, that they kind of play along with the riff.
Yeah.
Though they kind of take over a bit, but it's all right. I think he sings really high on this. And yeah, I think also it's kind of repetitive, so that's why it's at number 10. I think it's okay. It's definitely much better than slowpoke music, in my opinion. But yeah, it's all right.
So that's my number 9, Sweet Lady Luck. I didn't hear this until the Greatest Hits came out in 1994. So there were 3 songs on there. So like we talked about the 87, it was Looking for Love and You're Gonna Break My Heart Again, that were new songs to me. And just like those songs sound exactly like they could have been on the 87 album. This was obviously from the sessions. Very typical Steve Vai at the beginning. Like I think it's a great heavy rock song. And I think it could have found a place above the 2 songs that I just mentioned. Definitely very high to sing, but I like it. But now, honestly, we're getting into songs that I really genuinely really like. So it's harder to come up with the exact order that they're in. But for a song I heard 4 years after I'd heard everything else, or 5 years actually, I really like this one. So that's where I placed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do kind of like the vocal melody. I think it's in the bridge where it sings, I want it and I need it. If
Yep.
you don't give it, I'll steal it.
Yep.
I like that. I like that part. I think that's really good.
There's another thing about that song too, Chris, is that I think that I noticed this a lot. I think they were trying to redo something like Bad Boys, because if you think of how that chorus goes, Sweet Lady Luck, bad boys, like it's
Yeah.
the phrasing is kind of similar.
Yeah.
So I feel like if this had been on the album, it probably would have been the second song. But
Yeah.
it's not a copy. It just sounds like they were trying to write another kind of song like that.
You also have that strange part where his voice is like echoed and he breaks down, it's your, and then you have Steve Vai's riff going in again. But yeah, I always thought that part was weird.
And I can imagine, like, it was one thing for, like, say, you know, longtime Whitesnake fans to try to get used to John Sykes' style of guitar playing. But Steve Vai is another step altogether in the guitar shredding thing. It's like, this does
really a flashy player.
Yeah. But that's what Coverdale wanted. Like, he wanted that. He saw him with David Lee Roth and he thought, that's my guitar player. He always references the movie Crossroads.
Yeah,
where it's got that scene at the end. He's like, he said, I've got the devil's guitar player in my band now. I remember him saying that in the interview. And I didn't understand that for years later till I saw that clip from the movie. I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah. Is it me now, or was it?
Yes. So it's your number 8, I think.
Number 9.
9, yeah.
Yeah. So my number 9 is Fool for Your Loving. Now, if we were talking about the album Ready and Willing, this would probably be number 1 on a ranking on that album. But I don't like this version, to be honest. The only reason why it's not at number 11 is because it's Fool for Your Loving. I love the original song. The structure of the song is pretty much the same. It's just the instrumentation and the sound of it that changed. So that's probably the only reason why it's this high. And that's not high on many people's list, but for me, it's high because I would have put it on number 11 easily. But yeah, because I feel like they were trying to capture what they did with Here I Go Again and maybe even Crying in the Rain. They tried to do it again. And I don't think it worked. And it really showed because this charted, I think, but not very high at least.
38. That's where it got on the pop chart. 38. And this was the first single from a long-awaited album. Wasn't off to a good start.
And that's crazy that just in 2 years, like their popularity was decreased so much, because I think just from like the momentum of the 87 album, this probably would have been a huge charting single anyways, even though it was kind of too heavy for
It's too
radio.
heavy for too heavy for for top 40 radio. Way too heavy. I've got a
But
lot to say about that, but yeah, it was not a good choice for a single.
I think if this album was released 1 year prior in '88, maybe that momentum would have helped it. But 2 years at that time was too much, too long of a time. So yeah, Proof for Loving is my number 9.
Okay, so my number 8 is Now You're Gone. This was the third single from the album. I like it. I like the song. It's a mid-tempo ballad. But yeah, by this time, Whitesnake dropped so drastically in popularity. This song peaked at 96 on Billboard. That is crazy. Like it might as well not even have, I always joke about, if you think about it, that's only 4 spaces or 5 spaces higher than me, and I didn't even chart. So, 96 for a band with a platinum album on their hands. I saw the video once. It wasn't a popular video. It's a cool video, just, live. And I like the song, but it's like, the Whitesnake fever was over. And it was like, I think late spring, early summer 1990, and it was done. They were done. But I like the song. It's just, it's so strange to me how shockingly bad it did on the chart. And that was it. Geffen was done. They never bothered with another single. And I don't think I think the problem with this album is there were no obvious singles. Maybe one, but there was no obvious killer, can't miss, going to be a hit. But I'll get to that when I talk about Food for Your Lovin'. But Now You're Gone. I like it, but it's my number 8.
Yeah, and The Deeper the Love was actually a more successful single for them than Now You're Gone.
Yeah.
But I think if both of those songs were on the '87 album, I think those would have been much bigger than they were. So, and it's also very strange because a song coming up later in my list was supposed to be the first single, and it wasn't. And I think that particular song, which we will get to, is way too heavy to be a single. If Food for Your Lovin' was too heavy, this was just
I know exactly what you mean. And I didn't know that for years. I'm like, oh, that would have been terrible. That wouldn't even that wouldn't even
it would have scared off a potential new audience.
It would have done well, I think, on the mainstream rock chart, but it wouldn't have been a top 40. There's no way. I don't even think it might be another 96. I mean, it might have, it could have totally tanked the album. It might not have even have sold 1 million.
Yep. Definitely. So my number 8 is Kittens Got Claws. Now, I really do like the song, apart from the lyrics, of course. But the only reason why it's at number 8 is because of that. It's just very cheesy, and it's a bit too much. David, when people say today, like, you need to calm down, you need to, like, tone down these lyrics, he just makes them worse. And this really feels like one of those, like a Spit It Out or something like that. Though Spit It Out is a much better song.
It's like it's better just let him do his thing and don't mention it, because he'll do it worse.
Yeah. But I think his vocals on this is killer. I do really like it. I love the riff here too. I like the solo. I like most parts of the songs. It's just the lyrics are like too much to like they are distracting. So that's why it's number 8. But if you can look past the lyrics, I think it's a really good song.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we both got the same bottom 4, just in a slightly different. Sort of, I guess.
Yeah.
So my next one is Cheap and Nasty, second track in the album. I like it. It's pretty typical Whitesnake. I mean, I think a lot of the problem on this album was that somehow David got it in his head that I've got to be heavier. Whitesnake were never really. I know people say that, Still Tonight. Well, yeah, that's a metal song. I get it, but the production on Slip of the Tongue it sounds good. I think it's very high fidelity, and I think it's held up well, but it's not top 40 friendly. It's too heavy. even on songs that aren't really that heavy. So I don't think they were ever going to get. I'm really kind of surprised that Geffen, because John Kalodner at Geffen was so opinionated, but also I think this album ran over budget and it was over recording time. So I think at a certain point he's like, oh, just put it out. But Cheap and Nasty is a good song. I mean, Cheap and Nasty, Ready and Willing, Come and Get It, Rough and Ready, Hit and Run. It's very early Whitesnake, and it's always A-N apostrophe. It's never A-N-D, except I think there might be like a Saints and Sinners uses an ampersand, but most of the time it's an. Cheap and Nasty, which is how people, which is how you'll sing it, right? You don't really put a lot of emphasis on the D, but I think it's a good song. Apparently Glenn Hughes is buried somewhere in the background vocals, but I think that he hadn't sobered up at this point, so I don't think his vocals were usable, but apparently he's on here, which was kind of cool to see. I mean, it didn't mean anything to me at the time because I hadn't gotten into Deep Purple, but a good song. I like the guitar solo on it a lot. Again, I think that if they'd have dropped it down a couple of keys, this would have been a perfectly good song, and it would have been, it would have saved his voice a little bit. But anyway, Cheap and Nasty.
Yeah. My number 7 is also Cheap and Nasty.
Yeah.
So, I've always liked this song, but it has the same problem as Kid and Scott Claus with the lyrics and everything. But I think this is a better song. I like the cowbell in it. I do really like that.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of cowbell. I think that's cool. David's voice on this is incredible. Though this is one of the songs where he goes really high in his range. Probably unnecessarily. Yeah. But if we accept it for what it is, I do really, really like it. And I think the solo in this sounds dirty and nasty. I just love it. It's just so aggressive. And it kind of reminds me of the solo in Give Me All Your Love. Just very noisy, very screeching, screaming solo. So really, really enjoy it. Really good song.
I love how the solo's it's just like a hand, but then it's Steve Vai. But I like how he starts it off. It's almost like he's winding it up. Steve Vai is an incredible musician. I had the pleasure of seeing him live, and did he fit Whitesnake? No, but it's fun to listen to. It's fun to listen to and play within the context of these songs.
Yeah, then you also have like that almost a cappella part. Also,
with the.
It's a good break from it being so energetic and so fast and everything aggressive. So I like it. Really good.
And this is another example, like when Tommy does those fast drum fills, those would be lost with that '87 production. You couldn't. They would whereas you hear every strike of the drum on this album, which I think is a good thing. Okay, so my next one is Fool for Your Loving. So the interesting thing is, if I hadn't seen the video to the original song the one time I saw it, if I hadn't bought Live in the Heart of the City, this would have been a brand new song to me. But I was very familiar with the song and a big fan of the song. It's one of my favorite Whitesnake songs in its original 1980 version. I love everything about it. I think the key that it's in is perfect. I love I love the keyboard introduction. I love Bernie Marsden's solo. It is just exactly what the song needs. Ian Pace is just that light touch on the drums. Perfect. It's fantastic. And people took notice because this was a number 53 hit. I was thinking it was 53 on Billboard. So they had their first entry on the charts way back in 1980. It didn't go any further, which is a shame. But obviously people responded and like, oh yeah, this is a really good song. So you think about it, it did better than Now You're Gone. So anyway, the remake. So yes, they were hoping lightning would strike again because Here I Go Again was such a big hit. Let's take a song from one of these older albums. And I'm of the theory, and no one's convinced me otherwise, that this is the reason why Geffen did not reissue Ready and Willing when they reissued the rest of the back catalog. It's why I had a hell of a time trying to find Ready and Willing. I was just fortunate to find an old Mirage Records cassette in a dump bin. And I was so happy because I finally had all the Whitesnake albums. And I already knew this song from seeing the video. When I knew it, that's the reason. Yes, that's the reason why I bought Live in the Heart of the City right after the '87 album. That's why it's the second thing I ever bought by Whitesnake. You'd think it would have been slided in, but no, I wanted Fool for Your Loving. Couldn't seem to find the album that it came off of on the studio version, so I bought the live album. Glad I did, because it's one of my favorite live albums. But basically, they thought this would, do the same thing Here I Go Again would do, but no, it's much too heavy. It's produced too heavy. It's abrasive sounding, and they raised it up from G to A. And and again, it's Coverdale singing unnecessarily high, which I don't know if I would comment on that so much if it wasn't so painfully obvious the damage that it caused. We could have gotten some better, even if the songs on the last few Whitesnake albums were exactly the same. I think they would have been better vocally, because I think he would have been able to, because I think he tore and ripped and tore, and I really don't understand that, because he'd already almost lost his vocal cords before the '87 album. He had to have that operation. I think maybe he was a little cocky, and it's like, I can do this. Okay, you can do it now, but if you go on the road for a year and do that night after night and sing everything this way, what kind of shape is your voice going to be? You won't even be able to talk. Anyway, Fool for Your Loving. The only reason it got to number 38 is pure momentum. The video's kind of cool, but you can't really. I mean, they were trying to, it was one more time they were trying to, they used Tawny Katane again. You can barely make out anything. It's very dark. And I still don't understand why they had to drop the car off the building at the end. That makes no sense to me. Why is David Coverdale in like a quiet room, like an insane asylum? Seems like there was a concept there, but they didn't go any further with it. It could have been really interesting, but instead it's just a showcase for, I don't know. It sounds good. And if I didn't have the original to compare it to, I might have been like, yeah, this is a cool rocking song. I just know how much better that original version is. I don't hate it, but it's probably higher than it should be. But like you said, it's on the strength of the song. It is a great song. And hey, it was a little extra mailbox money for Bernie Marsden again. So, it is what it is, but it was never going to take the place of the original. And it only bettered the performance of the original on the charts in the US by 15. So it didn't really do that much better. You'd think that the first single from a band coming off of a huge selling album would have at least landed somewhere in the 20s. But if it peaked at 38, it couldn't have been in the charts for more than 2 or 3 weeks at the very most, maybe even 1 week. I don't know. But I just remember I heard it on the radio for about a week, and then that was it. Now, I, as a Whitesnake fan, was going to buy the album no matter what. But you're also trying to get the casual fans that like the songs they hear on the radio. It's just too heavy. You weren't going to hear it in the daytime. You might hear it at night. You're never going to hear it on AM radio. It was ill-advised, but only slightly better than, like you said, what their first choice was going to be.
Yep, exactly. My number 6 is Now You're Gone. Like, I couldn't place this lower than Cheap and Nasty and Kittens Got Claws and these types of songs. I just think it's way too good to be placed under those. So I just couldn't do it. So that's one of the reasons why it's here. Even though I probably rock out more to Cheap and Nasty and Kittens Got Claws and probably listen to them more, because this is one of the songs that I think it's kind of overplayed in a way. At least for me, I think this was one of the big songs, even though it didn't chart that high. It's one of the more memorable ones from the album, because it was one of the singles, this and The Deeper the Love, and yeah. So, but I think it's quite a good song, quite a rocking ballad, and I do really like it. So I think it's a really good song. And I just couldn't place it lower than those others. So and also I just really like that guitar melody in the beginning. Really, really nice. I do really like that. And the keyboards just building it up slowly. Just really good. And I think it has most elements. It has the calmer parts. It has David singing these really nice lyrics, even though Now You're Gone is not a positive message. I think it just sounds really nice, and it's also very rocking. So I think it has all parts. I think it's a really solid, good song.
Now you've got me wishing I'd rated it higher, because the more I think about it, it really is quite good. There's two things that really stand out to me. It's an example that Steve Vai doesn't always overplay. It really nice guitar melodies. The beginning guitar melody is nice, and even the solo isn't really over the top. There's some fast licks, but then it goes into that twin lead melody that leads into where it breaks down for the last verse. It's really good, and it really shows a little bit of restraint. And also, this is a comfortable key for Coverdale to sing in. He doesn't oversing. He doesn't sing beyond his range. This is his natural range, so he sounds great. Sounds really good on this one. My next one is the title song, "Slip of the Tongue." Of course, this was the excitement. I'd heard "Fool for Your Lovin'" and then its B-side, but this, getting the album, putting it in my Walkman and listening to it. I like the fanfare at the beginning of it, but I always thought it was strange because it's like there's no keyboard player in this band. Why is the first thing you hear like, why is there's this big keyboard fanfare? But once it kicks in, and you got Tommy's double bass drums, and Coverdale screaming his head off, but it was like exciting. It was like, oh yeah, Whitesnake are back. And oddly enough, when I saw Adrian Vandenberg last year in concert, before the band came on stage, they played that keyboard fanfare from Slip of the Tongue, which was pretty cool. But yeah, a good song. We knew that's what the album was going to be called, so you were just kind of listening for, and I could have said, okay, well, yeah, gee, what's this going to be about? But a good song, a good rocking start to an album, and I really like it. It brings back a lot of memories. I still remember first listening to it and that excitement of got a new Whitesnake album, complete album to just devour and listen to. And I listened to it a lot, in its first few months of being out. It was on my playlist for a long time.
Yep. My number 5 is Wings of the Storm. Really like this one. Really cool riff in the beginning. Really good song, really epic. I think not epic in the scope of sailing ships or anything, or Judgment Day, but I think this is kind of a smaller scale version of that, and I do really like it. I think it's really cool. And the solo in this is one of my favorites on the entire album. It goes through different phases too. You have that
oh yeah,
and that really heavy part, but then it speeds up and it's just really, really good. I think that's really Steve Vai flashing his muscles and check me out. It's just really, really cool. So love the song, everything about it, David's voice. I think it's just really great. One of the highlights. And this was one of the songs when I first heard the album that I thought was forgettable and didn't really pay much attention to it. And I thought the more immediate songs like Cheap and Nasty and Kitten's Got Claws captured my attention. But this is a song that has really grown on me, and I love it. Really good one.
So my next one, my number 4, I guess, is Sailing Ships. I mean, this is, I think this is like Coverdale at his best. It's a philosophical song. It's like Soldier of Fortune, or it's like, what's the first, Don't Fade Away. This is him in a more reflective state of mind, but it's really well sung. I love the sort of sitar or sitar-like guitar on it. It kind of reminds me, well, it very much reminds me, because in 1988, the last of the 2 albums that Steve Vai did with David Lee Roth, Skyscraper, there's a song on there called Damn Good, which is sort of an acoustic ballad. Yeah. Steve plays a similar kind of sitar, like Eastern sounding melody, and I really like both of those songs. They kind of, but that's obviously Sailing Ships is all Coverdale, all Whitesnake, and it kicks in the best of ways. He's singing for the most part within his range. It's kind of a minor epic, and it wouldn't work anywhere else on the album. It wouldn't even work as a side 1 closer.
My number 4 is The Deeper the Love. I just think like this is the best ballad like on the album, and I think it's one of the highlights of his career too. I think "Is This Love" is like probably number one, but I think this one is really really good too. I like all aspects of it, and also this also feels like a song where he keeps in his range. He goes higher at the end, but I think he like keeps in his range, and I like his lower range in the verses. I do really, really like that. I've always preferred that with David. I think his lower, more deeper, bluesier voice. I've always preferred that. I think that's really cool, and that's probably one of the reasons why I really like the early years of Whitesnake.
Yeah.
Uh, Even though Slide It In is my favorite album, I don't think he goes overboard on that.
No.
Then the 87 album and this, he goes a bit too far in that aspect. But I still like it. I think, and this song is just great. And I totally understand why this was the most successful one from the album. Because, yeah, it really does sound like a hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know, the thing about Coverdale, the advantage he had over most other singers, especially in the late 80s, that, you know, he kind of felt like he was in competition with, is that he does have that great, deep, bluesy voice, and he can sing in that lower key. Most of those other singers couldn't. I find if somebody has a naturally high voice, that if they try and sing in a lower key, then it's like not just there's such a thing as not just out of the range in a high way, but there's out of the range in a low way. It almost just sounds like they're talking. It doesn't sound like, but Coverdale can sing in that low, and he sounds so good doing it. But I think I have to think that when he got that operation and it was successful, he probably thinks, okay, I have a new voice now. I'm going to use it. But I mean, let's think. I mean, everybody loves the big note he hits in "Still of the Night." But I don't think that song wouldn't have the impact if he sang high like that all the way through the song. There's dynamics, and a lot of the songs in this album ignore the dynamics. It's just all high all the time. So that's why the songs that I think have survived the best are the songs where he doesn't do that. So case in point, my number 3 is "Wings of the Storm." I've always loved this song. Again, it's got that, you know, Steve Vai shows enough restraint with that really simple guitar melody. Really, really, really good. And Coverdale, this is an example of a heavy rock song where Coverdale sings in his natural range. He doesn't lean on the high notes. The you know, the on and on, the road goes on. He's singing in that low note, and you're with him. You're, oh, what's he going to tell us about? Like, it's a kind of a story song. He never gets really, really at the top of his range in this one. I just really like it. Now, I don't think it's single material, but I think it's a strong song. And I like you. I love when it slows up to halftime. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
And then that's my Steve Vai impression. But great song. I think it's, you know, always been one of my favorites on this album. It's becoming obvious what our final choices are going to be. I think process of elimination.
I can't really remember the exact lyrics, but there is a part in "Wings of the Storm" where it goes really high. I think he says, "You talk about love," and it goes like really, really high.
But just that one part, right? It doesn't. Yeah, it's like less is more.
Yeah. So I think that works because he just does that in those parts. He doesn't do it throughout the whole song. And to your point, I think that's why it works, because he doesn't scream throughout the song. So yeah, great point there. My number 3 is "Slip of the Tongue," the title track. I've always liked this, and I love the beginning keyboards. I've always liked that. I think it just really builds up the epicness of the song, and just gets you pumped up and excited for what's about to come. And always liked the riff in this. I just always like that. And and David goes really, really high in this song. But I think this works on this song, because a song like "Kittens Got Claws" or "Cheap and Nasty," even though I really like those sound like they could have been in a lower key, and they are like unnecessarily high. I think an energetic opener like this really needs it, and I think it fits really well. So I think it would have had more impact if this was one of the few songs where he goes this high. I think that would have worked much better. But yeah, really good song. Love the solo. Love every part of it. Really, really good. Always been a highlight for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I mean, if he started out with the first song, the next album people are waiting for, and it's like a very low key, people would be like, well, this is boring.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense. But do it sparingly. Like, yeah, I don't think he did it sparingly enough.
Yeah. And also that scream at the end where
Yeah.
the drum, I just
Yeah.
love it. And he really
That's his
screams at the very
that's his
end.
still of the night moment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, good song.
So my number 2 is The Deeper the Love. Great song. And I think this is probably now this is the only song I hear in modern times off Slip the Tongue. It's the only one I've ever heard on the radio. It only peaked at 28, but I think, unfortunately, I think the damage was done. The first single, especially if it's long awaited, the first single, you got to knock it out of the park at that time. You've got to have something that really hits hard. I think this should have been the first single. I know it's like a mid-tempo ballad, but I think at this point in time, that would have been their best shot. And they could have done everything the same. The video could have been the same. And I think it would have done a little bit better. I think it would have charted. I think it would have been at least a top 20 single. I mean, I can't predict that, but that's just my feeling because you put most of the promotional muscle as a record label behind the first single, and it pretty much flopped. And in context, if it was a brand new band that was untested and their very first single hit number 38, they'd be like, okay, not bad. First thing anybody's heard, and it's a top 40 hit. Whitesnake, after having a number 1 song and a number 2 song, you expect more. But I think The Deeper the Love should have been the first song. Again, very much Coverdale singing in his natural range. This is a song that, given another treatment, wouldn't really have sounded out of place on one of the earlier albums, because it's not hair metal at all. He's not singing out of his range. It's a really good song. Love the guitar solo. Great guitar solo from Steve. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really shows that Steve Vai can be a very melodic player.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not only a shredder. So yeah, really good one. My number 2 is Judgment Day. Always like this one. Really, really heavy for Whitesnake. I think this is probably the heaviest song in the Whitesnake catalog. I can't think of anything else that's heavier than this. I just think it's so epic, heavy, awesome. Just from the get-go with the drums. Do 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 do. I just really cool. And the guitar is do 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 do. I just love it so much. And then you get into these other parts before the verse with the guitar and everything just builds up, and with the keyboards in the background, builds up this very kind of a mystique in a way. It's like really cool. I just love the mood of it. And yeah, David's voice in the opening lines and everything. It just screams epic.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. And yeah, this is also one of the songs where it goes really high in its range. I also think it works on this. And I like where it goes really high and the guitar goes along with it and kind of amplifies it in a way.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really cool. And then after that, he goes lower. We walk toward the sun. I just love that. It's just really cool. The contrasts in the song, just really great. Love the song. I like that it's a bit longer too. Really takes its time, and yeah, great song.
So obviously, that's my number 1, Judgment Day. What a killer song, and what a terrible choice for a single this would have been.
Yeah, that was the one we mentioned.
No way would this have gotten enough airplay to matter. And they would have spent $300,000 filming a video that never got played or hardly got played. So yeah, I was very surprised to hear that. I'm like, who would ever think this would make for a single? This wouldn't
Yeah.
even make for a fourth or fifth single if the album was a huge seller. There's other songs that would have worked better, but it's a fantastic song. Now, at the time, of course, people were so ready to jump on David for, oh, he ripped off Led Zeppelin, with Still of the Night, right? Well, this time I think he thought, fine, let's write a song that everybody's going to say we ripped off Kashmir. Lots of bands did songs with those sort of Egyptian tunings, and it's very superficial. It's just the fact that it goes into those small notes that you're automatically, anybody that's into hard rock is going to think, oh, well, it sounds like Kashmir. It really doesn't. And it's a heavy, menacing riff. It's almost like it's like it's, I think Coverdale has said he's called that a Percodan riff. Like if you're being put under to get a tooth pulled or something like that. But yeah, and this was a song that the Vandenberg did live, and it was when I saw them, and it was fantastic. I mean, I love it. I mean, Tommy with the double bass, you get those little bass triplets. I love Coverdale uses his voice. It makes sense that he goes high, but then he brings it back down. It's not all high all the time. And I don't understand why that wasn't obvious. Like this is how you should sing. This is where you're at your best. You don't need to be on 11 the whole time. Not just for the damage you do to your voice, it just makes for a more pleasant listen. And you're still rocking out. You're not losing any of the aggression. Yep. The middle section, boom, like, oh, I love it.
Always like that part. It's really cool.
It's no, it's a fantastic song. It's Whitesnake at their absolute best. It wouldn't sound out of place on another album. This was always going to be my favorite. This has always been my favorite song from Slip of the Tongue, no question.
Yeah. My number one is Sailing Ships, and that has been the same for me. This has always been my favorite song on the album. Just really like it. As you said, they like the sitar kind of sound in the beginning. Really like that. And on the acoustic versions on Starkist in Tokyo, that's
very nice
guitar, really good version. Though they only do like most of the verses and the calmer parts. They of course don't do like the drop, as I call it, and where
exactly.
That would have made sense in that setting. But I think that version is really good. But this one is the definitive version for me, of course. And always like this. I love his more gentle vocal approach in the beginning, as we talked about before, the more bluesy voice that he has. And really cool. And when it like drops and it intensifies, and it's just so epic and so cool. I've always liked it. It's one of the highlights of the Whitesnake catalog for me. Really, really cool. And this really feels like, even though in the more screamy parts at the end, and he does like the Still of the Night theme again at the end, even though it's similar to some of the other songs when it comes to the key and everything, I think the whole structure of the song and the type of song it is very different. So it's not the Kid and Scott Claus or Cheap and Nasty or Slowpoke Music or anything like that. So I like that it sticks out. The same with Judgment Day also. That's also kind of different in its epicness and everything. So I like, that's probably why those are my top two. Apart from them being just great songs, just being different and not like blending into the background like some of the other songs. So Sailing Ships, definite highlight. And I think one of David's best vocal performances ever. It's just so good. So that's always been my number one. The same way that Judgment Day is your number one. So
Sailing Ships is probably the most traditional Whitesnake sounding song on this album. Even though Fool for Your Loving is an older song. But the way it sounds on this album, no. Sailing Ships is it's that style that David would write in when he would write stuff like We Wish You Well, and Till the Day I Die. This sounds like classic Whitesnake with a modern, modern as of '89 production. Perfect way to end the album too.
So I just can't believe that they changed the track listing and put "Fool for Your Loving" at the end.
That doesn't.
It's just
Yeah.
this song ends the album perfectly, and yeah, I really need, as I said with the '87, I really do need to get an older CD of this to get the original track listing, because this won't do. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think in the case of Slip of the Tongue, I know the '87 album, the songs are in a different order, like back in the day from the UK to North America. Same with Slide It In.
Yeah.
I don't think this one is. I think it's the same
Yeah.
order no matter where you get it. So I think they it all kind of linked up by now.
I think that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Because I had an original vinyl copy of this, and Sailing Ships was definitely the last track. I
Yeah.
think, look at your CD, I think "Fool for Your Loving" is the third track.
Yes. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Slip of the
That was
Tongue,
on
Cheap and
the
Nasty.
original vinyl too.
Yeah. Slip of the Tongue, Cheap and Nasty, Fool for Your Lovin', Now You're Gone, Kitten's Got Claws, Wings of the Storm, The Deeper the Love, Judgment Day, Slowpoke Music, Sailing Ships.
Yeah, that sounds exactly like the original vinyl copy that I had, which was a UK, I think, so UK copy.
And the UK might have had Sweet Lady Luck on it, but I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Not on the vinyl, at least.
Okay.
So yeah, but I might be wrong. But I think it was a UK copy I had, at least a European. So yeah.